I worked 37 years as a structural engineer for the state of Ohio. Bridges, overpasses, highway ramps. Every morning at 5:15, every evening home by 6:30. Brown bag lunch on my desk because restaurants cost money I'd rather save. When my wife passed 4 years ago, I promised myself one thing. The day I retired, I'd buy a place on the water. Somewhere quiet, somewhere mine. Then my daughter-in-law called and said, "We're turning your lake house into a family retreat center. If you have a problem with it, sell it back." I didn't argue. But when she showed up with her business partners, she found something waiting that changed everything. Before we go on, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The closing took place on a Tuesday in early April. I sat across from the title agent in a small office in Traverse City, Michigan, signing papers while rain streaked down the window behind her. The cashier's check for $197,000 represented everything: pension buyout, savings bonds I'd held since 1991, the profit from selling the house in Columbus where I'd raised my son. 37 years compressed into a 2-bedroom cottage on the eastern shore of Glen Lake. "Congratulations, Mr. Callahan." The title agent smiled. "You're officially a lakefront property owner in Leelanau County. Thank you." I shook her hand and pocketed the keys. 2 keys on a simple ring. They weighed almost nothing. The drive from Traverse City took 40 minutes on winding roads that narrowed through cherry orchards just beginning to bud. April in northern Michigan meant unpredictable weather, and today it shifted from rain to pale sunshine as I crossed the ridge above Glen Lake. The water appeared through the trees, deep blue-green, impossibly clear. I pulled over and just looked at it for a while. The cottage sat on a half-acre lot at the end of a gravel lane. White clapboard siding, stone foundation, covered porch facing the water. Built in 1948, updated in the 90s. Small kitchen, living room with a fieldstone fireplace, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. The dock needed repair. The boathouse leaned slightly east. Perfect. I unloaded the truck deliberately. Tools went into the boathouse workshop. Pegboard already mounted on the wall, waiting for my wrenches, levels, handsaws, books on the shelf by the fireplace, engineering references I couldn't part with, novels I'd been promising myself for years, coffee maker positioned where morning light from the kitchen window would reach it first. Every item placed with purpose. By evening, I was sitting on the dock with my feet hanging over the water, drinking coffee too late in the day, watching a loon dive and surface 50 yards out. The silence was extraordinary. No highway noise, no neighbor's television bleeding through the wall, just water lapping against wood and wind moving through white pines. I called my son Kevin. "Dad, how is it?" His voice was warm, genuinely happy for me. "You get everything signed?" "All done. I'm sitting on the dock right now watching a loonfish. Mom would have loved it." "I know." I could hear the catch in his own throat. She really would have. We talked for 10 minutes. His teaching job, his wife Jillian's new real estate venture, safe topics. When we hung up, something in his tone lingered, a thinness underneath the warmth, like a bridge beam that looks solid but flexes more than it should. I'd spent my career recognizing structural weakness, but I told myself it was grief. We both still carried it. The phone rang again 20 minutes later. A voice I didn't expect. "Walter, it's Jillian." My daughter-in-law spoke with the clipped efficiency she used for everything. "I need to discuss something with you about the lake property." My hand tightened on the dock railing. "The lake property? You mean my house? The cottage has incredible potential. I've been looking at Leelanau County real estate trends. Properties on Glen Lake are appreciating 15% annually. Here's what I'm thinking. We convert it into a boutique retreat center. Wellness weekends, corporate team-building events. I already have 2 investors interested. Kevin and I would manage the business. You'd keep living there, just in the smaller bedroom." I stared at the loon, now motionless on the dark water. "Jillian, I bought this place 2 hours ago, which is why we need to move fast while the market's hot. I'll send you the business plan. We should meet with the investors next week. They want to see the property." "No." The word came out firm and clear, surprising even me. "No what?" No to all of it. This is my home. Not an investment property. Not a retreat center. My home. Silence. Then, cold. Walter, I think you're making an emotional decision. When Kevin and I discussed this, Kevin agreed to this? He understands the opportunity. You should too. We'll talk when you've had time to think clearly. She hung up. I sat holding the phone, watching the loon dive again and vanish beneath the surface. Smart bird. Knew when to disappear. I didn't sleep well that night. Not from anxiety, but from the kind of sharp focus that comes when you recognize a problem that needs engineering. At the kitchen table, I pulled out the grid paper notebook I'd carried for decades and started writing. Not emotions, questions, timeline estimates, resource assessments. Morning found me at the table with 3 empty coffee mugs arranged around my notepad. My notes had grown dense with diagrams, connection lines, questions circled and recircled. I showered, loaded the truck, and drove to Traverse City. The Leelanau County Register of Deeds office opened at 9. I requested copies of my property deed, confirmed no liens or encumbrances, and asked about the process for filing a homestead exemption. The clerk, a patient woman who'd clearly answered these questions thousands of times, walked me through everything. I took detailed notes. Next, I visited a locksmith and had new locks cut for every door on the property. Then the hardware store, where I purchased 2 motion-activated security cameras with cellular connectivity, $289 for the pair, and a weatherproof lockbox for documents. Back at the cottage, I installed the cameras methodically, one covering the gravel driveway approach, one aimed at the front porch and dock. I tested angles, checked signal strength, adjusted positions until coverage was optimal. Both feeds connected to my phone. Weak cellular signal this far from town, but functional. That evening, I called Kevin. Your wife called me last night about turning my cottage into a retreat center. Long pause. Dad, she's just excited about the business potential. She doesn't mean, did you agree to this plan? I mean, we discussed it. The area is growing. The property could generate. Kevin, did you agree to this plan involving my house? Longer pause. She thinks it makes financial sense for everyone, including me, the person who spent his life savings on it. Dad, just meet with her investors. Hear them out. That's all she's asking. No. This is my home. I said no, and no is a complete answer. He exhaled hard. She's going to be upset. That's not my problem. After hanging up, I made a note in my book. Kevin didn't defend me. Kevin didn't say it was wrong. That told me everything about who was driving this. 3 days later, Saturday morning, I was replacing rotted boards on the dock when a black SUV pulled up the gravel lane. Jillian emerged from the driver's side in business attire that was absurd for lakeside gravel. 2 people followed from the back seat. A man in his 40s with a leather portfolio and a woman with a tablet, already photographing my cottage. Walter, these are my partners. Jillian gestured broadly, already walking toward the porch, as if she owned the property. Derek handles development, and Carla manages marketing. We just want a quick tour so they can assess the space. I set down my hammer and stood on the dock, 6 feet below them on the sloped yard. I didn't walk up to meet them. Jillian, I said no. This is private property. You're here without an invitation. Derek stepped forward, professional smile. Mr. Callahan, we're not here to pressure you. We just want you to understand the numbers. This property could generate $40,000 a year in retreat bookings. It could also remain my home, which is what it is. Carla was still photographing. The cottage, the dock, the boathouse, the lake view. I pointed directly at her. Stop taking pictures of my property. Now. She lowered her tablet, glancing at Jillian. Jillian's expression hardened. Walter, you're being unreasonable. Kevin supports this. Then Kevin can call me himself and say that to my face. You 3 need to leave. They left. Slowly, making a point of it. Derek slid a business card under my windshield wiper. Jillian didn't look back. I collected them. That evening, the phone campaign began. First call, 7:15. My sister-in-law from Dayton. Walter? It's Diane. Kevin told me you've been having a hard time adjusting. He said you're isolated up there and making some concerning decisions. The pattern was immediately clear. Jillian was building a narrative. Just like any undermining campaign, she was establishing the premise before making the move. Diane, I'm fine. I retired to Michigan. That was always the plan. He said you turned away potential business partners, that you were aggressive and confused. I turned away uninvited strangers who showed up to photograph my house. That's not confusion. That's common sense. Second call, 8 o'clock. A former colleague from Columbus. Same script. Concern about Walter's state of mind. The isolation. The irrational refusal to consider a reasonable proposal. Third call, 9:30. Kevin. Himself. Dad, Jillian is really upset. She's talking about how you yelled at her partners and acted threatening. That's not what happened. They were uninvited. I asked them to leave my property. That's my right. She says you're not yourself. That retiring up there alone was a mistake. She says a lot of things. Are any of them true? He didn't answer. That silence said everything. I sat at the kitchen table in the dark and watched moonlight move across the lake through the window. In one evening, 3 calls with the identical message. Walter Callahan is unstable. The isolation has changed him. Someone should intervene. This wasn't about a business opportunity anymore. This was about control. About discrediting me so thoroughly that when the real move came, whether legal or financial, no one would take my side. I opened my laptop and composed an email. Subject line: consultation request, property protection, and estate planning. The next morning, I drove to Traverse City and met with attorney Hannah Prescott. Her office was above a bookstore on Front Street, clean and organized, framed degree from Michigan State on the wall. She was in her late 40s, direct in the way people are when they've grown up in small towns where everyone knows each other. I presented my documentation, property deed, timeline of events, notes from every phone call, screenshots of the security camera footage showing Jillian and her partners on my property. Mr. Callahan, you've been very thorough. 37 years in engineering. Documentation prevents disputes. In this case, it's going to protect you. Here's what I recommend. Revocable living trust with me, as independent trustee. Your property and retirement assets go into the trust. It becomes essentially judgment-proof against family claims. How much? $2,200 in legal fees. Worth every penny. Do it. She also recommended a comprehensive medical evaluation. If they try a competency challenge, you want current documentation that you're sharp and capable. The medical evaluation costs $220 at a clinic in Traverse City. Dr. Morrison, a thorough internist, conducted cognitive testing, physical examination, blood work. His written assessment was clear. Mr. Walter Callahan is cognitively intact, physically healthy for his age, fully capable of managing his own affairs. No signs of diminished capacity. I filed everything meticulously. Color-coded folders, cross-referenced timeline, the kind of documentation that would survive any legal challenge. 2 weeks passed. I settled into the life I'd imagined. Coffee on the dock at dawn, repairing the boathouse lean, which turned out to be a simple foundation issue I fixed with a hydraulic jack and new footer blocks, reading on the porch in the afternoons. The loon had a mate now, and I watched them fish together each evening. Then Kevin called. Dad, I need to tell you something. Jillian filed an LLC last month. Glen Lake Wellness Retreats. She listed your cottage address as the business location. Everything went still. She filed a business using my address? I didn't know until yesterday. She's been telling people the retreat center is launching this summer. She has a website, taking deposits for events at my property, without my knowledge or permission. His voice was small. I think so. Yes. Kevin, that's fraud. Dad, she's my wife. I can't. She's committing fraud using your father's home. This isn't about sides. This is about the law. He was quiet for a long time. I know it is. I just don't know what to do. I do. I called Prescott immediately. She pulled up the Michigan Secretary of State business filings within minutes. Glen Lake Wellness Retreats, LLC, registered April 28th. Principal office address, my cottage. Registered agent, Jillian Callahan. That's fraud, Prescott confirmed. She's operating a business from your address without permission, collecting money for events at a property she doesn't own or lease. This is potentially wire fraud if deposits cross state lines. What's the next step? We document everything first. Then we report to the state attorney general and potentially the FBI if interstate commerce is involved. But Walter, this will create serious consequences for your son's family. I know. But I won't allow my property to be stolen through a scheme this brazen. The investigation took 3 weeks. During that time, I discovered more. Prescott's paralegal found that Jillian had accumulated $68,000 in credit card debt across 4 accounts, all maxed out. She'd also taken a $28,000 personal loan using inflated income figures. Her real estate business, which she'd told Kevin was thriving, had actually closed 6 months ago after a client sued for misrepresentation. This woman was drowning in debt and saw my lakefront property as a life raft. When Prescott laid out the full financial picture, I understood the complete architecture of the scheme. Jillian's real estate business failed. She accumulated massive debt. She saw my retirement purchase as an opportunity. The retreat center wasn't a business plan. It was a desperation play to generate cash flow using an asset that wasn't hers. And my son, loyal and blind, was being dragged into the wreckage. Meanwhile, Kevin called again. Dad, something happened. I found bank statements Jillian had hidden, accounts I didn't know about, credit cards I never signed for. She told me we were fine financially. I took a slow breath. How bad? I think maybe 70, 80,000 in debt. Maybe more. I can't tell because some of the statements don't make sense. She took out loans in I don't know whose name. Come to the lake house, Kevin. This weekend. Just you. There are things you need to see. You know something. I know everything. And you need to know it too. He arrived Saturday morning, looking like he'd aged 10 years. Unshaven, dark circles, hands restless. I met him on the porch with coffee and led him to the kitchen table, where I'd arranged the evidence folders. I started from the beginning. The LLC filed using my address, the fake website collecting deposits, the full scope of Jillian's hidden debt, the personal loan with falsified income, each document presented calmly, sequentially, the way I'd present structural findings to a review board. Kevin read each page slowly. His face went through every stage. Denial, confusion, anger, devastation. When he reached the LLC filing, his hands were shaking. She used your address. She's selling events at your house. Yes. People paid money. At least 12 deposits that we've found, ranging from $500 to $2,000 each, for events that will never happen at a property she doesn't control. He set down the papers. Dad, I had no idea. I swear I didn't know. I believe you. That's why you're here. Then I told him about the trust, about my medical evaluation, about Prescott and the state attorney general's investigation. His face went white. She's going to be arrested? She committed fraud. Multiple counts. The deposits alone are enough for criminal charges. If any of those deposits came from out of state, it becomes federal. He put his head in his hands. We sat in silence for a long time. The loon called from somewhere on the lake, that haunting 2-note cry. What do I do? That's your decision. But you need to make it before the investigation becomes public, which will be soon. He looked up. You're asking me to choose between my wife and my father. No. I'm asking you to look at the evidence and decide what kind of life you want. One built on someone else's lies, or one you build honestly, even if it hurts. Kevin left that evening without giving me an answer. I didn't push. Some decisions need to settle like concrete before they're strong enough to hold weight. 4 days later, Wednesday morning, my phone buzzed. Text from Kevin. I filed for divorce this morning. She found out about the investigation through a friend at the courthouse. She came home screaming. I'm at a motel. Can I come up there for a few days? I typed back. The second bedroom has clean sheets. Drive safe. He arrived that evening, car packed with whatever he'd grabbed. We didn't talk about Jillian. I made pasta. We ate on the porch, watching the sunset paint the lake copper and rose. After dinner, he sat in the chair next to mine and said quietly, "Mom would have known. She always saw through people. Your mom saw the good in people. That's different from being naive. Jillian fooled us both for a while. Not you. You said no from the first phone call. I said no because I trusted my instincts. You trusted your wife. That's not a failure. That's love. She betrayed it. That's on her." The investigation concluded in late June. Jillian was charged with fraud, forgery, and theft by deception. 12 victims who'd paid deposits for retreat events that would never happen. The total exceeded $16,000 in stolen funds. Combined with the falsified loan applications, she faced serious prison time. Her attorney negotiated a plea. Guilty to reduced charges in exchange for full restitution. The judge sentenced her to 18 months of probation, $16,000 in restitution to the deposit victims, and permanent revocation of her real estate license. In the courtroom, she looked smaller than I remembered. Not the commanding woman who'd arrived at my cottage with investors, just someone whose schemes had finally collapsed. I felt no satisfaction, only the grim recognition that consequences had found the right person. The divorce finalized in August. Kevin got the house in Columbus, though it carried more debt than equity. He sold it at a small loss, paid off what he could, and started fresh. He'd already secured a teaching position at a school in Traverse City, 40 minutes from my cottage. I helped him find a rental, small apartment above a hardware store on the main street. Not glamorous, but clean, affordable, and his. We painted it together over a weekend, me holding the ladder while he cut in the ceiling edges. Simple work. Meaningful work. Healing wasn't smooth. Some days Kevin was grateful. Other days he was angry at Jillian, at himself, at me for having the evidence that destroyed his marriage. I let him feel whatever he needed to feel. Didn't offer advice unless he asked. Just stayed present. We started a tradition. Sunday mornings, he'd drive out to the cottage. I'd make breakfast. Eggs, toast, coffee strong enough to stand a spoon in. We'd eat on the dock if the weather held, watching the loons. Sometimes talking, sometimes not. One Sunday in September, the leaves just beginning to turn, Kevin set down his coffee and said, "Dad, thank you for being the one who said no when I couldn't, for protecting your home and protecting me, even when I didn't see it. You don't need to thank me. I do, because I know what it cost you. Those months when I believed Jillian over you, when I didn't answer your calls. That must have hurt. It did. But you're here now. That's what matters." He smiled. First real smile I'd seen from him since April. "Look at that loon. She's got babies, 2 chicks riding on her back. I'd been watching them all week. They ride up there until they're strong enough to dive on their own," I said. "She carries them until they can carry themselves." Kevin looked at me. I looked at the lake. Neither of us needed to say what we were both thinking. Later that evening, after Kevin drove back to town, I sat on the dock as the sky darkened. Stars appeared. More stars than I'd ever seen in Columbus. More than I'd imagined existed. The lake was still. The Loon family had settled somewhere in the reeds for the night. I thought about the woman in the title office back in April, handing me 2 keys on a simple ring. I thought about what those keys meant then, and what they meant now. They'd started as an ending, the final reward for 37 years of work. They'd become something else entirely. The beginning of a fight I never wanted but refused to lose. And now, finally, they were what I'd always intended. Home. I stood up slowly, knees reminding me I wasn't young. Walked up the sloped yard to the cottage. The porch light glowed warm against the white clapboard. Inside, the coffee maker sat where morning light would find it. Books waited on the shelf. The second bedroom, Kevin's room now whenever he needed it, had clean sheets folded on the chair. I locked the door. Both locks, the ones I'd installed myself. Then I sat down at the kitchen table with my notebook, not to plan or strategize, just to write 3 words. We're all right. The cottage settled into its nighttime sounds. Wood cooling, water lapping at the dock, wind through the pines. Peace, hard-won and deeply valued, settled over the property like the September dark. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To listen to the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for watching.